Hello again, more Americanisms explained. I finally got through all of the high school ones that I had been working on, and so I've got more just general Americanisms. Hopefully you've been enjoying the series. So today, what do we got? Well, the first thing we've got is it not going to the... There we go. Size of the United States. So the thing is that a lot of times when people come to the United States from other countries, tourists and everything, they don't necessarily realize how large the country is. So they'll talk about like, oh, I want to visit the Statue of Liberty and I want to see the Grand Canyon and I want to do all this. You can't do that in like a week. It would be, well, technically you could, but it would be very difficult to do that in a week. Seriously, you'd be like going from the, you'd get off the plane at the airport in New York, you'd go over, see the Statue of Liberty, and then you would be going back to the airport to fly to the southern part of the United States, Arizona area, to go to the Grand Canyon. It's not like you could just get in a car and drive there and see everything in one day. It's not going to happen. So, like, I've got here a couple of things. So, the furthest points east and west that you can drive on the 48 contiguous states. So, the United States is made up of 50 states, right? And we're not even taking Alaska or Hawaii into account here. So if you wanted to definitely go to Hawaii, you might just go to Hawaii because you're not going to go you're not going to go to New York and see all that stuff, then fly all the way over across the United States to the Pacific Ocean to go to Hawaii for like a day. It's ridiculous. But east to west, the contiguous 48 states. You have Point Arena, California to West Quoddy Head, Maine. Those are the furthest distance you can drive across the United States. And that's 2,892 miles or 4,654 kilometers. Now, if you're driving north to south, not quite as expansive. You have it's 1,816 miles between International Falls in Minnesota and Brownsville, Texas. So, what does this look like? Well, it looks like this. So, to go from Point Arena in California to to West Quoddy Head in Maine, it's about a 53-hour drive. And this shows that it's 3,525 miles. Now, the previous measurement was probably taken by air or just direct across the United States. So if you were driving, it would take you 53 hours to drive. That's a little more than 2 days of driving time just to get there, to cross the United States. I remember we didn't visit my grandparents very often when I was a kid because they lived in Oregon, and it took us 2 days to drive there. Now, the reason it took us 2 days to drive there was not because it's 53 hours from where we lived at the time to Oregon. The reason it took 2 days is because my parents didn't want to be cooped up in our vehicle with a bunch of little kids for, I forget, it may have been like a 12-hour drive or something like that. So they broke it up over 2 days so that we wouldn't have to do all of it in one stretch. So the thing is that if you're trying to see everything in the United States, you're either going to need to live here and do a heck of a lot of traveling, or you're going to have to come back multiple times. Now, This is the trip from International Falls in Minnesota to Brownsville in Texas. It's 1,814 miles driving, or it is, obviously they're showing a couple of different routes there, but a lot of times you'll hear Americans talk about how long it takes to drive from one place to another instead of the distance it takes to drive from one place to another. For instance, if you were visiting me and you wanted to go skiing in the winter, I would say that the nearest ski resort is an hour away by drive time, which is actually, I was looking at it, looking at throwing a slide in about this a little bit earlier. I ultimately decided to not throw it in there because the pictures wouldn't work with me. But it's about that same amount of time if you wanted to go water skiing to drive from where I live to the beach. So the thing is that we oftentimes, instead of saying how long the distance is, we talk about the drive time. So we'll say, oh, it's 15 minutes from my house to the store, rather than saying how many miles or kilometers it is. Mostly, I think it's just the fact that we're such a car culture, and that we rely on our vehicles for so much, that we just talk about things in terms of how much time it takes us to get there, rather than how much the distance is from point A to point B. Now, obviously, we can look it up like this, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what we're going to do. But anyway, so if you are interested in coming to the United States, in seeing everything, like I said, one trip here, it's going to be impossible unless you basically live here. You're going to have to live here and do a heck of a lot of traveling. I've been to two countries. I say two countries. I've been to three countries outside of the United States. I've been to Canada, Italy, and Japan. And with Canada, obviously, Canada is very similar to the United States in terms of distance as well. In fact, it might be bigger than the United States. I'd have to double check the statistics. But being a large country is not ultimately unique to just the United States. I mean, Russia is a large country. Australia is a large country. Brazil is a large country. There are other countries that are large like the United States, but we get a lot of tourists from, say, Europe. China is another big country. We do get a lot of tourists from Asian countries and stuff. And when I say the state that I live in is roughly the size of Italy, you can kind of get a sense of distance. So going from my state to just about any other state in the United States, it would take you about the same time to go from Italy to another country, just basically across the border into Switzerland. But in that same distance, I haven't left my home country. So a lot of times when people talk about visiting the United States and wanting to see everything, they just don't realize how vast the distances are in the United States. All right, so tipping. Tipping in the United States, 15 to 20% is usual. It's starting to trend upwards. 20% is getting to be more and more the standard nowadays. Personally, I wish it would go away. I would like to go and sit down in a restaurant, pay for my food, and leave, and not have to worry about, do I look like a cheapskate if I only tip this person $5? I don't like the way that I am expected to pay more so that my server can have a decent standard of living. I think that should be on the restaurant, not on me. Now, if my server did something incredibly spectacular, I felt that it was, something incredibly, worth me tipping them for, I wouldn't be averse to it. But I'm there. They're supposed to be taking my order, serving me my food. That's their job. Why should I be paying them to do their job? That's their employer's job. That's their employers should be doing that, not me. So I like I said, if they're doing something that's incredibly spectacular, I don't mind giving them a tip. That's not the point. The point isn't that, tipping is bad or good, but I don't feel that tipping should be expected of me. And in addition, I don't think it's like I should be tipping them a ton of money for them doing just their job. Their, an adequate job. You know what I mean? So I wish it would go away. It's not going to. We're very much reliant, especially for food service workers, on the tips and stuff. So, what can you do? Shoes in the house. I don't do this. My family doesn't do this. When I was younger, I would do this when I went over to my friends' houses, because that was kind of, I can only say that at the time it wasn't part of the etiquette to take your shoes off in other people's houses. I do that now, and part of the reason whenever I was home, I don't like wearing shoes. I would much rather go around barefoot, especially at home. And so as soon as I was in the door, I would take my shoes off, and when I was going home, I had a place to put my shoes. There was a designated place for my shoes. So to me, that made sense. When I would go over to friends' houses, that same consideration, it wasn't like it, I shouldn't say consideration, but that same place for my shoes didn't exist. And so it was like, well, where should I put my shoes if I take my shoes off? A lot of houses in the United States, shouldn't say a lot of houses in the United States, that's an overgeneralization. A lot of houses in the neighborhood I grew up in were split entry houses. And what that means is, as soon as you opened the front door, you had a staircase going up and a staircase going down. And so as soon as you walked into the house, there was a landing area. And I remember when my friend's his family got new carpet in their house. And his mom insisted that because they got new carpet, she no longer wanted us to walk around on it with our shoes. And so we were taking off our shoes by the front door. The problem is that it got hard to even open the front door, depending on how many people were over at the house, because, everybody that lived there, they took off their shoes, put them by the front door. And then if their friends came over, and it could be a lot of friends, a few friends, depending on the day, it was somewhat hard to get the door open. And so we didn't have this thing where there was a place for us to put our shoes. And so it was just more convenient to just leave your shoes on and go into the house. I understand the fact that you're walking through a bunch of stuff, and then when you walk through all that stuff and then you go into the house, you're now tracking it through the house. And so if I knew that I had, wet shoes or muddy shoes or something like that, I would obviously take my shoes off before I went anywhere in anybody's house. And I do realize that just because my shoes don't look dirty doesn't mean they aren't dirty, and that I should take them off regardless. But it's becoming a lot more acceptable, more standard behavior in the United States to take your shoes off when you go into somebody's house. Yeah. So dates. The United States, the people in the United States, we write our days as month, day, year. So if you're looking at a date written by someone from the United States, and you're looking at it going, why is the month the 28th? There is no 28th month. Well, that's because you're looking at it wrong. It's month, day, year. Now, I realize that the rest of the world, I shouldn't say the rest of the world, but a lot of the rest of the world. I keep using these overgeneralizations, and I apologize. Many countries in the rest of the world, they use a different standard. They switch the day and the month, which is, when someone from the United States looks at that and says, what month is the 28th? Obviously, for us, we're looking at it wrong, and it should be day, month, year. In looking this up and looking at why we in the United States write our dates the way we do, we are a former colony of England. And apparently, before the 20th century, Britain, England, used to write their dates like this. They used to write their dates as month, day, year. And we brought that tradition from England to the United States. Now, England has since switched to match the rest of Europe, which makes sense. They're a lot closer. They do a lot more trade with each other. There's a lot more going back and forth between those countries. Now, that's not to say that the United States doesn't have ties to those countries. We're just not part of, say, the European Union. We're not part of that community, so we're not as heavily invested in making sure that our standards match theirs. So we have never changed. The rest of the world changed to day, month, year. They may have been doing that all along. Turns out, like I said, when I was looking this up, I was interested in figuring out why we in the United States, a lot of people in the United States don't even understand or can't give you a reason for this. And in looking it up, that's what I found a lot of the times. But I did find that the kind of expectation, or maybe the reason why we do things the way we do, is because we brought it as tradition from England, and we just have kept it. And there's a lot of things like that. Since we were a former colony of Britain, or of the United Kingdom, England, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, Florida was part of Spain, and we've had parts that we've taken from Mexico and things like that. We do have different cultures that have made up. New York was used to be called New Amsterdam before it was taken over by the English. There's a lot of things like that, but some of the things have stuck, some haven't. And in looking this up, I found out that there's actually a third way to do dates that it's an international standard that is considered even better than either of the other two that we've been talking about, which is to put the year first. So year, month, day. They feel that that's actually better because you can't, or I shouldn't say can't, but you make fewer mistakes if you put the year first and then the month, then the date. So anyway, that's why we do it. That's why I believe we do it. Although, like I said, if you do a search for this kind of stuff, you may find nobody knows why, but I'm pretty sure that it was because we are a colony of England. England had established the month, day, year as their standard prior to changing it to what it currently is, and we've just never changed because there's never been societal pressure for us to do otherwise. Who knows? Christmas lights. So this will be the last thing I talk about in this video. Personally, I like looking at other people's Christmas lights, but I don't like putting them up myself. And actually, I don't, if I can get away with it. I don't mind putting up Christmas tree lights. So I have a Christmas tree in my house. I put lights on the Christmas tree. I don't mind that. It's nice to have the Christmas tree. Brings in that holiday spirit. Lights on the outside of the house, I hate that. You have to, it's not like you want the lights on your house year round. So you have to get up on the house and take them off and put them on. And usually you're trying to time it right so that it's not snowy, so you don't slip off your roof and kill yourself when you're trying to put up your Christmas lights. And so recently I've actually convinced my wife that we don't need to put up lights on the outside of the house. We instead put like a display up in front of our house, and we've got like some triangle things that look kind of like trees, and we've wrapped them with Christmas lights, and we have some light up candy canes and stuff that we can put in the lawn and stuff, and it's much easier to do. I can put it up in a few minutes, plug everything in, and it's good to go. Whereas with the Christmas lights on the house, it was always, got to go get the ladder, got to get up on the roof. I'm hanging over the edge, got to find all these. There were these plastic clips that were always breaking. I had to take the lights, and I had to plug them in and make sure they are all working from the previous year. And if a light went out, it's not like if there's snow on the roof and on the ground, it's not like I'm climbing up there to change the light bulb. So I try not to do it. Now, like I said, I do like going and looking at the Christmas lights because there's a lot of people that go overboard with the Christmas lights. It used to be just a simple strand of lights around the eaves of your house, make things look decorative. But now it's like this picture that I've got here where they've got arches and different display stuff, and we've got lasers now and video effects, and it's overblown. When I was growing up, there was a house that we always used to like to go look at because it was right on the corner of two streets. And the guy who owned the house, he must have loved Christmas time and putting up Christmas lights because he went all out. He went all out on his Christmas decorations. He was putting them in his front yard and in his backyard. You could see this I swear you could see this house from space. That's how many lights he put on the house. I mean, I've got a picture on here that to me, this is way overboard on Christmas lights. And this guy's Christmas display was even more ostentatious than the picture that I have here. So there are people like that go all out on the Christmas lights, and it's insane. So personally, like I said, I like Christmas lights. I like going and seeing what other people do, but I hate putting them up myself, and I have gotten to the point where I don't, if I can get away with it. So that's it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully it explains a few more of the weird things about America that you've always wondered about. If there's something that you'd like me to talk about, please, down in the description, or down in the comments, down in the description, let me know. I will do some research if I don't know why Americans do things the way they do. Sometimes the reason that we do things the way we do is we've always done it that way. But I'll see what I can do to demystify some of these things for you. So if you're interested, please like and subscribe, comment down below, and have fun.